others?
There is nothing is off limits. Everything is on the table.
Okay.
And that's my answer.
Okay.
All right? But back to this drug dealing allegation. Bernstein indicated that a police officer said that Anthony Anderson was involved in some type of drug transaction. He indicated that Anthony Anderson was selling drugs.
Right.
I mean, that's the newest allegation that we received as of today. He said that he walked away from a transaction and he was run down by one of these Baltimore City police officers, particularly Todd Stroman. But if you're selling drugs and you just were involved in a drug transaction, where's the money?
Right, right,
And where is the user?
right.
I mean, if you saw the drug dealer, then why didn't you go get the drug users? Drug possession and drug distribution are crimes in the state of Maryland. So if you could catch up to a gentleman who's walking away and they both went in separate directions, why not get them both? And if you believe that Anthony Anderson was the drug dealer, why does he supposedly have a capsule of heroin in his mouth? And why is this evidence just coming out today? And why does he not have, since he had it in his mouth, why isn't it in his system?
Right.
So, and you know, these facts are very troubling, and it shows that the officer's testimony was inconsistent. And if you have inconsistent testimony coming from these officers, and you have consistent testimony coming from these family members who actually witnessed this crime, and you had consistent testimony coming from other eyewitnesses who actually observed this crime, why are you taking the testimony of these inconsistent officers who've given inconsistent statements ever since this case began over the testimony of very credible and honorable victims? So, in effect, he has discounted the testimony of victims, and I don't know how you're going to ever prosecute crime in any city if you discount victim testimony. But
I have another question for you, though.
Yes.
In his reasoning, he seems to base most of his decision on the medical examiner's report. So are you to take issue with the medical examiner?
let's speak to that for a
Yes.
second, because he said, from what I heard today, the medical examiner's report was very clear that this was a homicide, that the victim suffered several fractured ribs and a ruptured.
But not the kicking, which you're saying was the problem.
I'm sorry?
The medical examiner says it was the fall that...
The medical examiner didn't
not
say
that.
anything.
Not
See,
say
that is
Oh, okay.
the misnomer. Maybe it was a misunderstanding on behalf of the media, because I don't want to come out and say, I don't want to come out and straight up say that he made a misrepresentation, but the medical examiner's report is clear, and the medical examiner's report does not even describe mechanism of injury. They weren't there, so they can't tell you how a person died. All they can tell you is what they've observed based upon the evidence that they have in front of them.
Okay,
A medical examiner cannot say that someone was kicked to death. They don't know if he was kicked to death with a harpoon, with a bat, or
He says, quote, died from the blunt force when he fell to the ground, causing his spleen to rupture. Are you
a
saying
medical
that's not in
examiner.
the report?
That is not in the report.
Okay.
There is nowhere in the report whatsoever where the medical examiner indicated that he suffered his injuries as a result of being thrown to the ground.
Okay,
But we do have testimony that he suffered these injuries as a result of being kicked.
okay.
Yeah. So that is just that is not my reading of the report, and if you credit my reading of the report, it would be untrue.
Okay, so I haven't seen the actual report, so you're definitely taking issue with Bernstein's reading of the report.
Right, because a
However,
medical examiner wouldn't tell you what the mechanism of death was because they weren't there. It just makes sense. They don't tell you. They don't give you that information.
Attorney Gordon, do you see a pattern with this Baltimore City State's attorney? I mean, there were other cases where African-American males were involved. Do you see
My pattern,
some disparity?
The pattern that I see is a high tolerance of blue crime, or that's what I see. A high tolerance of blue crime. It seems it's been a long time. We hear about blue crime all the time, but it's been a long time.
Blue crime? What's that?
Police crimes. I'm not talking about police.
Selling dope on a parking lot?
Well, that's blue crime.
Oh, that's blue crime.
But I'm not talking about a police who's in a situation they have to make a split-second decision, and you Monday morning quarterback them. I'm not talking about that.
Officer Torbett, for instance.
I'm talking about intentional, malicious conduct that causes harm to the citizen. And Boderick has been accused of misconduct in the past, and now he's involved in the killing of an individual. Gregg Boyd has cost the city hundreds of thousands of dollars in the past because of his misconduct, and now he's in the center of an investigation, or was in the center of an investigation for killing an individual. Todd Stroman had his run-in. Apparently he was shot at in the past. Maybe he shouldn't have been on the force at all, because he was the brute in all of this. He's the one who actually, his conduct was the conduct that actually resulted in the death of Anthony Anderson. All of these officers have some kind of history with them that shows that, you know what, maybe they shouldn't be out on the street, maybe they should be behind a desk. With the misconduct in their past, who places those people back on the street to patrol a neighborhood like that Mr. Anderson lives in? So I just think they're...
For you? I mean, I know it's a question of you know, simple enough, but I mean, I saw you at the other press conference, and now, are you just tired of all what's going on? Are you just, you know, I mean, I know, I don't want to just say generic how you feel, but it sounds like the whole thing is done with.
It's done with?
I mean, how you feel about it? What is
It's
your
not
thoughts?
done with, but I'm very angry about everything. I mean, this should have never happened. It should have never happened. And we shouldn't be going through this with the Baltimore City Police killing anybody. We supposed to trust them. They supposed to protect us. We don't supposed to run from them and be scared. Because that's what's illegal. We running from them. So how we supposed to ask them for help when they killing us?
And Mr. Gordon, I've heard
Watching
three different
B1News.com, the news before the news.
roundabout ways of saying either
We
there is a racial or
the
socioeconomic
truth.
bias, or Gregg Bernstein has a conflict of interest,
Press
or
conference
there's a systemic problem
regarding
in the
Anthony
police department. Are you
Anderson's
saying it's one of those three, or are you saying there's all of those three?
Well, I think the family that I represent believes that it's all the above.
Yeah.
That there was some sort of racial motivation to this, and
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
depending on the neighborhood you live in,
What we're tired of is there always being some type of drug allegation to sort of diminish the import and the gravamen of what had occurred in this particular case. And we call it the 3Ds: deny, discredit, and destroy. And they've employed that over and over again. And I'm almost like, when are you going to get some new material? Oh, yeah. Oh, it was drugs involved? Oh, yeah. I mean, aren't we tired of that already? We know that there was no drugs involved in this case. And with regard to the new allegation of a heroin pill, after months and months of trying to get your story together, anything can happen. Anything can happen.
Right, they said that at first, and then when the medical exam discredited him for saying that he had nothing in his, then they let that go. Now they coming back with something
Right.
else.
But let's-
as far as drugs. That's not right.
Let's say if that was true.
if what was true.
Let's just indulge Bernstein's office for a moment, and let's just imagine that everything he said was true.
Okay,
Does that merit the death penalty?
I don't know, I'm not an attorney.
Well, I will humbly submit that it does not. And to get thrown to the ground for one pill of heroin or whatever they say it was, because we know it was nothing, and we don't credit that for one moment, but just to indulge them and go on this academic exercise for the purposes of showing the flimsiness of their argument. Even if everything they said was true, you have a person who's dead who should not be as a result of some harm that was done to him by a police officer that should not have occurred. And as a result, there's a manslaughter that has occurred in this case. The officer went too far, he crossed the line.
Keep
So you
watching
wanted
B1News.com, the news before the news, where we
any kind of
uncover
charge, just some sort of
the truth.
formal.
He didn't even give us an assault
Yeah,
charge.
that's what I said, it didn't have to be murder, you wanted just some sort of official acknowledgement that something wrong happened, you wanted any kind of charge?
Because anytime there's a crime in this town, the state has been harmed. The state is the victim. So when you have a crime, our thing civilly, that's personal justice for the family. The state has suffered an injustice by Gregg Bernstein not doing his job and not doing it well. So in terms of public justice, Gregg Bernstein's office has woefully failed in giving that to the citizens of this town because he refuses to prosecute blue crime, at least as it relates to Anthony Anderson.
Ms. Anderson, how concerned are you that those 3 officers will soon be let back on the street?